Hey everyone, welcome to Prompt 1. This is my slideshow on approaches to learning. I teach kindergarten, so for my standards I chose use grade level phonics skills to decode words in context and in isolation, blend letter sounds to decode simple one-syllable words, including regularly spelled high-frequency words, so that's vowel consonant words, consonant vowel words, and consonant vowel consonant CVC words. For my second standard, I chose explain the concepts of addition and subtraction and equality and use these concepts to solve real-life problems within 10, with a substandard of use a variety of strategies to solve addition and subtraction problems within 10. The goals for these standards are I can produce the initial, medial, and final sound in a CVC word. I can blend letter sounds to read CVC words. I can spell simple CVC words. I can add and subtract within 10, and I can use different strategies to solve an addition and subtraction problem. So, what do teachers need to know to be able to teach these things successfully? First off, teachers need to know how to make the appropriate letter sounds. Teaching kids letters and letter sounds seems simple, but a lot of people sometimes get the letter sounds wrong. Like, for instance, when you're teaching the letter T, sometimes people will say t, but really the sound for T is t. And if you say that t, it drags the sound out and makes blending really hard. So teachers need to know the proper sounds for each letter of the alphabet. They also need a strong foundation in phonemic awareness and spelling patterns. For instance, when you are trying to teach students when to use a C and a K for the k sound, it seems really simple, but those kids don't know when you use a C or a K, and you have to be able to have an explanation ready for them because they're going to have questions. Good blending strategies that will work for multiple different students are really good to have on hand too. For addition and subtractions, teachers need to know multiple strategies that they can teach their students to help them understand the concept, and they also need good number sense and to be able to teach students how to talk through their thinking. For differentiation, I found this quote in an article that says, at its most basic level, differentiation consists of the efforts of teachers to respond to variance among learners in the classroom. So to put it pretty simple, anytime a teacher tailors or adjusts their instructions to better fit the needs of an individual student or a group of students, that's differentiation. Students learn all different ways. What works for one student is not always going to necessarily work for another student, so teachers need to differentiate or adjust the learning process for those students. This can be through activities that the students complete. It can be a different product that they produce to show understanding. Like with some of my students are ready to write sentences, some of them are not. So if I'm asking for reading comprehension, what we learned about in the story, I have students that can write me a sentence, maybe even two. Other students, I just say, draw me a picture, label it best that you can to show me what happened in a story. So pedagogical content knowledge just means integrate what teachers know about teaching with what they know about what they are teaching. So putting together your knowledge as a teacher of how to best teach your students with the content that you are actually teaching. I demonstrate PCK in my classroom by being prepared for misconceptions and having explanations at the ready as best as I can. I also try to incorporate real world scenarios as often as I can, so bringing stuff in that kids are interested in. Roblox and Minecraft are some of my kids' favorite things. If I can throw that into a lesson somehow, I'm going to do it. So in my classroom, I show differentiation by tiered activities. Like with CVC words, I'll start off with maybe just vowel consonant words, just those 2-letter words when we're practicing blending. Flexible grouping, adjusting the product, choice of manipulatives, and adjusting my pacings of lessons when needed. Maybe not going quite as fast. Or for those more those higher students, maybe accelerating the lesson a little bit. I show PCK in my classroom with standard talks. We break down the standards, talk about what they mean and what we need to know. Data talks with my team and my students, using those data talks to guide lesson planning. Providing feedback to my students so they know, what maybe they misunderstood and how we can fix that. reflecting on my lessons and adjusting, and reviewing concepts before teaching so I'm prepared for any misconceptions. So the two approaches to learning that I chose to focus on are small group instruction and hands-on learning. I feel like with kindergarten, both of these things are really important. I feel like with any grade level, really, this is important, but especially with kindergarten because they're just getting that foundation to learning. So, small group instruction. What is small group instruction? It is an approach where a teacher works with a small number of students on a common educational concept. This approach allows the teacher to tailor that instructions to group's individual needs. Working in smaller group helps your teacher adapt the lesson better to students. When you're working with a smaller number of students, it's a lot easier to change things when you need to and adjust things when you need to. So I found so many articles on small group instructions, and I feel like that's because it is so important and a lot of people are doing it. I found that it goes all the way back to Socrates, him, saying that small group instruction shows benefits. It promotes deeper learning and understanding. It helps you catch up those struggling learners and accelerate your higher performers. When individuals within groups have a greater chance of identifying what they don't know and then fixing that. So when you're working in a smaller group, you're able to see your students better, see who is struggling, see who's picking it up, see who needs a little bit of extra help, and seeing exactly what they need that extra help with. Learning opportunities for all. So I have a very diverse group of students. Most of us teachers do. I try my best to plan activities that can be adjusted. I make sure that to talk my students through the activities, ask any questions that they might have, try to clear up any misconceptions before we get started. I have a few ELLs in my students. I try to pair them with non-ELL students to help them have discussions and build that vocabulary. For my students with IEPs, I have visuals, timers, and so many other supports that I have in place so they don't become overwhelmed. I feel like small group is really good for those students that do tend to get overwhelmed and overstimulated. Small group is amazing for being able to monitor student learning because you're right there. You're able to focus on them. You don't have so many other kids that you're having to you're still watching your class, but you're focused in on this group and those other kids are completing activities. I like to give each of my students a task. Like with CVC words, I'll give them a CVC word and have them to sound it out for me, and I'll go around the table and have each student sound out their word, and I'm able to focus on that student at that time. Here is my evidence for small group instruction. There is a video that you can click on and work on where I'm working with a group on CVC words. Over here I have a picture of the Elkanon box activity that we were completing, showing exactly what it looked like as we work through it. So my reflections on approach one, my strengths, I think that working in small group allows me to fix those misconceptions like that. I'm able to correct students, give an explanation without taking away too much of the instructional time overall. I had a couple of students that got confused when we were doing the blending, and I feel like I could address it right then and correct them, and so they were able to understand it. And so I had a couple of students getting off track a little bit. I was able to redirect them immediately. One weakness I did notice as I'm going back and looking at it, I feel like I did move pretty quickly. And so I feel like I could have maybe taken a little bit more time with each word, give them a chance to blend it out on their own a little bit more. For my above level learners, I tried to select words that have letter sounds that can be tricky for some students. Like I tried to pick a lot of CVC words that have an E and an I in the middle because they do tend to get those letters mixed up and they can be a little tricky for them. And then for my struggling learners, I got a couple that got confused with a good many letter sounds, and I felt like that was really good because I was able to pause what I was doing and go back over those letter sounds and give them a little bit of an overview of that, and then hop right back in to blending out the word. We would start all the way over so there wouldn't be any confusion and work through the word. My second approach is hands-on learning. I love hands-on learning. It's always been something that I've always used in every educational setting that I've been in. It is a method of instruction where students are guided to gain knowledge by experience, learning by doing, rather than just sitting there listening to the teacher talk. You're participating in something, you're active, your hands are on it, and so you're making connections. And I think hands-on learning is really beneficial. With the younger students, hands-on learning helps them make a connection between what they're doing and what they are learning. I try to plan a lot of hands-on activities. You'll see that in my reteach video. We do a lot of hands-on things. They help them think and react as well as explore their curiosity. So when you're putting your hands on things, your mind is thinking about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and that helps make connections, fire off all kind of synapses. And also, the students really enjoy it. They usually, especially with the younger kids, I try to find hands on activities that they're going to find fun. And when you are having fun like that, it makes you make a connection to it even more. You enjoy doing it, and I've always believed that you learn better when you enjoy what you're learning and how you're learning. So, with learning opportunities, I try to make sure that my manipulatives and activities are ones that students can use easily. Sometimes there are things I need to adjust, like with the learning locks that you'll see later. There are a set that I have that are CVC words and a set that I have that are just letter sounds. So they're able to do the same activity, but it is more suited to their needs. For math, I try to use manipulatives that don't cause too much of a distraction, something they're not going to try to play with too much, and I always model how to complete the activity before we get started. I feel like monitoring student learning when they're doing something hands-on is easy. I can watch them, I can see what they're doing. Like with the learning locks, if the key was not turning, I was able to say, hey, there's a reason that, the key is not opening that lock. You may need to find a different letter. So it's easy for students to show me what they know because it's visual. I can see it. I can manage their behaviors by showing them how to use the tools, redirecting when I need to. Here is my evidence for hands-on learning. You'll see the two different types of learning blocks, the CVC words, the letter sounds, and over here we have a worksheet that we completed using Unifix cubes for subtraction. So for my strengths, I feel like I picked fun, appropriate activities that the students like. They love the learning locks. They feel like they're playing with toys, but they enjoy doing it enough that they don't want to lose that privilege, and so they do it correctly. The same is for the Unifix cubes. Sometimes they get a little off track with the Unifix cubes, but being able to actually take them apart really helps with subtraction because you have that group and you are taking something from that group. So to some of the weaknesses, some of the Unifix cubes were getting stuck together and the students were having a hard time getting them apart, and I was having to kind of pause and assist them. So that took up a little bit of time. It wasn't a huge problem, but it was a little bit of an area of improvement. Also, when we were just learning subtraction, and so there was a little bit of confusion with that when we were completing the lesson. So just like I said earlier for my above level learners, I asked for my subtraction, I asked them to come up with a word problem that they could show me that matches the problem that we would solve. And when they were working with the learning lock, they were tasked with using the CVC words instead of the just letter sounds. And then my struggling learners worked with subtraction problems within 5 instead of within 10. I also gave them easier manipulatives because I had learned that the blocks were getting stuck together. And then when the learning lock activities, they focus more on the letter sound keys instead of the CVC words. And here are my resources, and thank you so much for viewing my prompt 1.